Hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast, Stacy, Personally Speaking, where my thoughts become known. This is Season 1, Episode 169 of the Journey 365 series. Today's episode is about Zoom team teaching, Surreal, Too Tired, and listening to God's voice. I fell into a pattern of going to bed late all of this week, and it has not been sitting well with me at all. I've been getting up tired and unable to experience that energy I need to get through the day. When I woke up this morning, or rather, my body, I wasn't ready to get up, but I was already alert and I needed to pee on top of that. That definitely didn't help. I went to the bathroom without turning on the lights because I wanted to go right back into bed to try and get another hour. I didn't make it to an hour, but got up at around 6 o'clock. The room was semi-lit, and so I opened the curtains to allow more light to come in. I had a beautiful devotion this morning. I woke up singing, "I will serve thee, because I love thee." It is a good thing to give all praise to the Maker of heaven and earth. I joined the psalmist in saying, But I will sing of thy power. Yea, I will sing aloud of thy mercy in the morning, for thou hast been my defense and refuge in the day of my trouble. Unto thee, O my strength, will I sing, for God is my defense and the God of my mercy. Psalm 59 verses 16 and 17 of the King James Version. The more I experience of God, the more my heart longs to worship Him. What is your response to a loving and caring God, one who delivers you in times of trouble? I was making good time this morning. At least it felt that way. That was until I had to start hurrying to make it out of the house by 8:45. My room has been in a perpetuated state of mess since last Friday when I thought I was going camping. I had left everything on my room floor in anticipation of this weekend. I had also been adding and rearranging things, and so I had to get another bag, especially when I borrowed some things from a friend of mine. That included a set of camping pots, but I think it's a bit much. But I prefer to have them and not use them than not have them at all. I took some time to make some mouthwash, which I had been doing without for a week. It has been 2 days since the dry powder inhaler medicine was exhausted. I wondered if it had helped, and I wondered if I'd be able to tell the difference. After my devotion, I did some leg stretches, focusing specifically on the back of my legs and calves. It felt so good. I had decided to have apples for breakfast again because I had no greens for my green smoothie. I can actually make the smoothie without the greens, but it just wouldn't be the same. And I know it would taste delicious too. I really just need to get some greens so I can get some iron into my system. Yeah, maybe that's why I'm so tired. I decided to have 1.5 apples and carry the other 1.5. And carry the other 1.5 with me to work. I also added the sweet bean mochi snack again in my bag. My body was tired and I could feel it as I simply could not push myself to ride as quickly this morning on my bicycle. I barely managed to leave home at around 8:45 and I was on a cruise control. It felt good not to be rushing, but I must admit it was difficult to keep an even pace when I wanted to move faster. But I was trying to listen to my body. Yes, and my body right now was not very happy. I I got to my desk a few minutes before 9:10, my start time. I must admit, my mind was already a bit overwhelmed from last night's activities that had me up until 11 p.m., even though I had really wanted to go to bed from earlier. It was just a lot of little things that I've been wanting to do that just kept being delayed. And so I pushed to do some of them last night, including registering to do the JLPT N5 test in December. The deadline is actually today, September 16th, but I wanted to send in the application and make the payment before. There had been a couple things that I wasn't able to do because I was just too exhausted and finally had to head to bed last night. And so while I was there at work, these things were on my mind. But I never got a chance to get to them at all. I spent most of the morning checking over student submission on Google Docs, the Google Forms, and making notes of some of the common errors. I did a little printing and updated the lesson plan with more pertinent information for the Zoom online lesson today. The teacher with whom I would teach was not the usual. The teacher with whom I would team teach came to work at almost 11 o'clock. A few minutes later, she joined me to go over the lesson plan once more and to show me where we would conduct the class, which was not the usual room that I use for my classes. I managed to stuff my mouth with one of the sweet bean mochi snacks, as I did not get the chance to eat my apples that I cut up at all. I should have had them when I realized some of the other teachers were eating just around 11 o'clock. The original start time for the fourth period was usually 11:45 and it would end at 12:35, after which would be lunchtime. But with the new schedule, the fourth period started at 12:10 and finished at 1 o'clock. This was my first time having these students on Zoom, and in fact my first time having high school students on Zoom. I'm used to working with university students and company employees on Zoom using my computer, but never high school students. And never this many. With over 30 students in the class, using an iPad was less than ideal for me. But this was the setup and I am not familiar. I'm not familiar with Zoom on an iPad. And in fact, the teacher didn't know Zoom much at all and told me she had learned so much from me. I couldn't see all the students on the screen. There were about 3 different screens or pages I had to scroll through to see each student, and I didn't know how to set it to speaker mode on the iPad, and the teacher didn't know either. There was a lot that I had to figure out while doing the class, but besides some technicalities and some students not turning on their cameras, no surprise, the class went pretty well, albeit at a slower pace. The only other challenge for me was adjusting my voice down a couple notches as I was still talking as though the students were in the classroom with me. I guess I was just trying to be as clear as possible because the other teacher was not so clear, especially when we were doing the dialogue, so I was like repeating the ends of what they said. Oh, the chime went off and it was time to say goodbye to everyone. I quickly did a few more things in the staff room before heading home. I found out that another college mate had died. This was the third one between last year and this year, all around my age, or a little older. It felt so surreal, and I can't imagine what must be going through the minds of my other college mates. 2020 to 2021 has indeed been surreal, as one of them put it. I got home at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which was kinda on the late side since I had finished teaching at 1 o'clock. But I didn't leave work until 1:30, and I had made a stop at the drugstore on my way home. Now listen to how God works in mysterious ways, right? I had stopped at the drugstore to purchase an organic insect repellent that had been recommended by my dear friend who is a herbalist. Okay? This is for my camping trip. She knows that I prefer natural or as close to natural as possible, and so she sent me a picture of a particular brand. This brand, however, was not in the drugstore, and so I sent her pictures of what was available, after trying to use the translator to identify if they were organic or not. She didn't respond right away, and I was tempted to choose something, anything. But she responded after I had left the drugstore. But that was okay, because I told myself that I could always go to the drugstore close to my house, which is the same chain or the same brand, the same chain, same store. When I was near my house, I decided I would stop home first and catch my breath. Even though I didn't ride hard to get home, I was just tired. So I planned to finish eating my apples and then make my way to the drugstore. Now, I'm not sure why I hadn't thought about this before, but I decided to go on YouTube. And I went on YouTube to check which repellent is better, an aerosol or a misting version. Which one would be better? That's what I really went onto YouTube for. When I typed that in, videos about natural repellents came up. Why didn't I think about that before? Right? And the truth is, this is not the first time that I actually researched natural insect repellents. You know, when there was the chickpea in Jamaica, that was the time when I was looking for natural insect repellent ingredients. So in my mind, I was wondering what I would have done if I had bought the one at the drugstore, because it's really big, right? And I only wanted it for my camping trip. I don't usually use repellents otherwise, because I don't have any trouble in my apartment with any insects usually at all, not even mosquitoes. And on top of that, my friend had gotten her vaccination today and was told by the doctor that if she developed a fever, that she should not go camping. So if I had bought that bottle, that repellent from the drugstore, I would have ended up with a can of repellent that I'd have no use for. But let's see. And so those thoughts went through my mind, and I just decided I was going to make my own repellent. Let's try, since I had most of the ingredients that were mentioned in the YouTube videos. So I did, and I smiled and told God that He is indeed a genius. He spared me from spending money on something that I wouldn't necessarily be using again, and something that might have had other additives included, which might not be good for my skin. That is how much God cares for every aspect of our lives when we listen to His voice. I sprayed some of this new mixture on my skin that I'd made, and there were no adverse reactions, and I smelled great. The bags, my camping bags, were going to be picked up today by my friend, though I'm not exactly sure why the decision to pick it up beforehand was made. But I'm sure they had their reasons. As such, I told them to come anytime after 5 o'clock. This meant I needed to ensure everything was ready, and so I made my way to the supermarket after 3 o'clock for what felt like the umpteenth time for this camping trip. Of course, I have been eating from earlier purchases. I took my time to go through the aisles, but was still careful of what I bought to take on the trip. I couldn't afford to give in to the temptation of bringing convenience food that I wouldn't have had if I was staying at home. I felt satisfied with my purchases today, which included lots of fruits. I made my way back and observed that the Indian store seemed open, but I didn't stop there. Once I got back home, I busied myself with concluding my packing. I wasn't able to update my packing list since I wanted to be ready for 5 o'clock. My friends hadn't said they would come at 5, but I wanted to be at least ready from that time. There was only one issue. I was so tired. really more tired than I wanted to be going into the weekend. But I still went ahead and vacuumed the stairwell from all the dirt I had piled onto it. I was starving, what's new, and had no idea what I'd have for dinner. I couldn't believe it. I'd hardly had any lunch. And because I had been in the supermarket for so long, I hadn't thought about it. My friend advised that there was too much traffic on the road, and so they went back home and advised that they would come at a later time. I didn't sit down to eat until 5:30 p.m. I was zapped, weak, and tired. Dinner was a smoothie and snacks. Conflicting, I know. I didn't have a clue what to have for dinner. I thought about going to the Indian restaurant, which I saw was opened on my way back from the supermarket. As a matter of fact, the grocery store section seems to still be in operation. Looks like they were either on a holiday on Monday or had opened later. It's a small business operated by 3 people, from my observation. Since I'd had some amount of bread, rice, and walnuts this week, which are not the best for my sinuses, I decided that going to the Indian restaurant was not the best option at this time, even though I would have really enjoyed having the curry. The smoothie was the best decision for my body right now. You know, it felt as though I was too tired to know if I was full or not. But the smoothie was quite delicious. I sat at my work spot and had the smoothie. I wanted to write today's entry, but didn't have the strength and mental focus to get it done. I wrote bits and pieces in an effort not to forget, and then I switched and watched a bit of Trevor Noah to get a few laughs. That helped me to relax a bit. I had moved all the bags downstairs in anticipation of the new ETA of 8:16 p.m. by my friend. The real weight felt lifted from my shoulders when all the bags were packed in the car. I could finally see my room floor, and my steps were cleared. Instead of meeting early tomorrow to head camping, we won't go to the site until late in the night, as my friend will be working late. I'll meet at their home with my fruits and cold items, which I didn't send this evening. Anything I have missed will have to fit in my backpack and the cooler box, or I'd have to do without. Tonight will definitely be an early one. Thank you so much for journeying with me on today's entry. Please support me by leaving a comment below or sharing this with someone who you think might enjoy my crazy little, boring little adventures every day. Remember to follow my blog if you want to read it for yourself at stacypersonallyspeaking.wordpress.com to get the post directly into your inbox. And of course, you can also join me again right here on this channel. Thank you so much for joining. Stay safe and God bless you.